Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a while. I've been a little bit busy, but have some time, so let's make some more tutorials. Yes. Okay, so the last time we were here, we created this, and things are working very well here. Now, I want us to be able to save this information that we put in here, because these are dynamic inputs, and we should see how to do that. But before we do that, let's organize our JavaScript a bit better. So JavaScript, like I said in the previous video, does not really have object-oriented systems. So we have to make do with what we can. So what I want to explain a little bit of JavaScript here. So we're going to take a little bit of a detour. I think that's how you say it. And so we can see how things work. So let me look for a page here we can use. For example, the 404 page, because this one is just page not found. It doesn't have much going on there. So I'll just open another one in the new tab and just type a page I know it does not exist. And so we get page not found. Oh, actually, there's so much here. I thought this would be empty. But in any case, let's inspect the element here. Let's deal with some JavaScript, shall we? So we're going to go to the console. Okay, so I'm coming down here to the views, and this is 404 page, and I want us to talk about JavaScript. So recently what we've done is, if I go to the admin section and go to courses view, you will notice that our JavaScript is just down here at the end. Of course, we'll move it to another file. But the problem we're having here is this. Let me show you here. Wait a second. Give me a minute here. Oh, I'm getting lost. Okay, so I'm looking for a variable that's quite long that we created. Okay, so it's on the second script tag here. So look at this one. It says students learn minimum inputs, right? Wouldn't it be nice if it's just minimum inputs, and we already know these minimum inputs belong to students learn object, maybe something like that. This is easy to do in PHP because we can just create a class called students learn, and then we add objects inside it, items inside it, and then we give these values. But we can do something a little bit similar in JavaScript. So what we can do is, okay, before I do anything here, I want to show you so you can understand a little bit why we use this dot notation and how we can take advantage of that. So I'm going to go back to my page not found, and right here I want to, actually, you know, I can make it a little bit cleaner by removing all of this and just saying page not found. That way we have less content on the page overall. We just have that page not found. All right, so let's go ahead and let me show you something. All right, so I'm going to put some script tags here. We can imagine this is an empty page. Let's put some script tags here. And then what I want to do is say var. The point I want to put across here is that everything in JavaScript is an object. So let's say I write something like var my variable is equal to anything, maybe 6 or something like that. Now, what I want to show you is that every variable that you create in JavaScript resides in the global scope. And it's not just in the global scope, it's part of the window object. So here what I want to do is say console.log like this, and say window like this. So I want to log the window object of JavaScript. So this is an object that comes with JavaScript. So I've created a variable here and given it a value, and then I want to do a console.log to just log the entire window object. So refresh, and here's window. Right now, if I click down here, you will see one interesting thing is that my variable is right here, right? So it's just a variable that we've declared, but it's part of the window object. So this is what I wanted you to see, that whatever variable you actually create is part of the window object. So it's not just hanging in limbo like that, it's automatically made part of the window object. So which means I could do something like this and say window, because my variable is part of window, I can do dot my variable like this. So this is exactly like trying to console.log just the my variable. So when I just do this and say console.log my variable, it will assume that this variable is in the window object and it will search for it there. So let's see here for a second. If I refresh, you see number 6 because that's what's contained in that. But even if I do window.variable, my variable like this, it will work exactly the same. You see that 6 there? Because this, whatever you create, is an object, is part of an object, and that object is the window object. So hopefully that makes sense. Now we can create our own object by saying the, let's call this one my object like this, and then by just putting 2 curly braces like so, okay, like this. All right, so if I do this now and try to check what my obj contains, it will show me that it contains an empty object. As you can see here, it's just an object and it's empty. Now this prototype you see here, the way JavaScript works is that everything you create in JavaScript is given this prototype thing. These are properties that are common to all objects. So this thing I created is an object, and then it will come with all these things predefined that are always part of any object that you create in JavaScript. This helps to give them, let's say for example, you want to check the length of this object. You're going to do something like my object. Let's actually remove window because we don't need to show that. Like I've already shown that whenever you just try to access an object, it will check in the window object anyway. So we don't need to explicitly say that, it will still work. Now if I do something, I say my object dot length like this, it's going to show me the length of how many items are in my object. But the question is, how did it know what to do if I typed length like this? So let me refresh. You will see, oh, wait a minute. My object doesn't have a length, right? Let's try an array. Okay, let's try an array. Okay, so the length is 0, right? Let's add an item to this array. So instead of an object, we're just using an array because I didn't test this thing I'm doing here. So for some reason, length is not part of the object system. So I'll just use an array just for demonstrating. So I'll just say dot push so I can add an item to that array. It's an empty array, but let me add number 10 there. So that's how you add items to an array. So the question is, how did it know that dot push should do this, should add this item here? That's the question. So let's come back here and let's refresh. Now you see that the length is 1. So 2 things here. First of all, there's this function called dot push. We know it's a function because it's got curly braces like this. And as you can see, length does not have curly braces like that. So it's not a function, but it's a property, right? So this one just returns a value because it's a property. This one does something because it's a function. So the question is, how did it know to do these things? So what I want to do is I'm going to remove console.log. I will remove the length. I just want to console.log the object itself. So let's come back here and refresh. So this is the object. It's an array. Now if I click here to see, it's got a length property of 1, which comes with it. And then it's got an item on level 0, which is item 10. That's the only item in there. But then there's prototype here. So prototype contains all the functions that I can use on this array. All right. So if you look closely here, you will see push right there, and push is a function. Look at that. Okay, name push. So this is a function that actually does something when I say, you see, because it's prototype here, array, if I just say this array dot and then I write push, it's going to search in the prototype section and say, okay, let's see if that function exists here. And then if it finds it, which is this one, it's going to run it. There's also .pop, which removes an item from the array, reduce, shift, slice. All these are things you can use. These are functions you can use to actually do something with this array. So this prototype thing is always added to any object that you create in JavaScript. So you have to keep that in mind, that prototype is a common thing in every object. And so everything you create in here is indeed an object. So let's try here and say my object is equal to just a number, .6. Now we can't use push anymore because it's not part of, this is probably an integer. So it's not part of int to have this push here. So let me remove it for now. We'll just do a console.log of the same thing. So I'll come back and refresh. And this is what we get. So that's just a variable there, and it's not really an item. So now, how can we use this very system to make things better? So let's see here. Now, one thing you should know is that you can actually save a function within an object, within a variable like this. So instead of saying this is equal to 8, I can say this is equal to a function like this. Okay, just like that, and then close that function. So this is very valid. I've set it equal to a function, but then the function here does nothing. So I'll just tell it to return number 8, like that. Simple and straightforward, right? And then now if I do console.log my object, let's see what we get. So we see that it's a function in there, and then it's also got a prototype and things you can do with that. But then to run this function, all I have to do is do my obj like this, and then put brackets like those. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, this is actually how I run it, but I need to do a console.log so I see the result. Like that, and then refresh, and then there it is. So instead of just saving a value, we've saved a whole function that does something. In this case, it just returns 8, but it can do a calculation, 8 times 5 or something like this, and return that result here, 40. Okay, so now that we know we can save a function in a variable, and then we can create an object and push items to that object, we can do something neat with this. So let me show you what I mean. Now, normally if I have my object like this, and then I set it to a value like, let's say 8, like I had. If I then try, let's say we have, let's not use the length, let's use, maybe we want to store a minimum value for a specific tab in our case. So we just call it minimum, and we save it as 8. As we have been doing here, minimum inputs, right? So we want to save this value. The problem is I can't use minimum on its own again, then I'm going to override this value. So instead, what I will do is I can create an object. So for example, I can do this, I can say var, let's say the page is a profile page. I can just say profile is equal to an object, and then I do this, right? Now, the way you save things in an object is you put key value pair. So you can say name and put a full colon, and then you can say something like John, like this. So if now I want to access this name, I'm going to just do, let me come down here. I'll do console.log. Let's do console.log first and log the entire object. So let's come back here and see that, refresh. Oopsie daisy. Okay, sorry, should be log. Refresh. Okay, so we have an object there with name and its value. Great. Now, if I just want to get the value of this key, I'll use a key. So I'll say profile.name. This is where all this dot notation comes from. It's because almost everything in JavaScript is an object. So to access that item, you do dot name like this. So let's come back here and refresh. And you see there's John. Now, it's not only with dot like this you can do. You can also do it like this. This will still work because there are times when it's just not possible to use the dot notation. Oopsie daisy. Oh, wait. This is weird. This normally works for me. Show me. Oh, actually, I should put it in quotes like that. Sorry, I forgot because it's a string this time. So if I want to use a string, I can do that. So let's see here. Hopefully that works. Yes, as you can see, it did access John in the same way, which is exactly as doing dot name like this. Okay, great, same result. So I can put more things here. I can say age and then maybe 24 like that. And then I can now access profile.age and get that one. But like we saw, we can actually save functions inside variables, which means we can do the same even in objects. So here I can just save a function instead. So I'll call the function myfunc like this, full colon, and then instead of putting a value like this, I can put a function, a whole function in there like this, and then just tell it to return a value of 8 like that. Okay, so now if I try to access myfunc, it's going to give me a function. So here let's do profile.myfunc like this. So let's come back here and refresh, and it returns the function itself, right? But if I put brackets at the end there, then I'm trying to run the function. They just showed me what my func contains, which is an actual function. But if I put those brackets, I'm telling it to actually execute the function. So if I now refresh, it returns 8. So hopefully you are seeing what's going on here. And then I can still do this because white space doesn't matter. I can do it like this and like that. So look at that. We are getting somewhere. So now I can do var profile is equal to, and then I can put name, I can put some properties, but then I can also load functions themselves. So let's do this. We can still do it like this, maybe put a value there that we are expecting also. Now you may be wondering, why do this? Because you're still naming the function anyway. Why put it in here? Well, the advantage is that if I had a function on the outside here, I would say function myfunc. Oops. This is supposed to be myfunc like this. Okay, this function will not conflict with this one because they are in separate, completely separate places. So here, this one, I'll just say return 10 like this. So if I now do console.log and just say myfunc, I'm calling this one. If I put profile.myfunc, I'm calling this one. So hopefully that makes sense. Here I'll get a 10, but if I undo, I'll get the version in the profile like this. So what I'm getting at here is that you can repeat this. You can have one variable called profile, then have another one called maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a different page. Maybe this is for the post like this. And then you can still put another function named exactly the same as the other and like this without having any conflicts whatsoever. So what I'm getting at here is that we can do something similar to classes in PHP. So this becomes like an overall container to hold functions and properties, which is similar to when you're doing PHP. In PHP, you may do something like class profile like this, okay? And then you're going to say public name is equal to, and then you put John there, something like this, Okay, and then you can have a function here, public function, and then you call it my func, like that, and then something like this. So this is an object in PHP. It has a function and it has properties, which is, we're trying to mimic that. It's not the same thing here, but it's close enough. At least it solves one problem where we don't need to use long names. We can just create a, what do you call this? A container that will contain shorter names inside, because we can easily repeat them instead of having to put prefixes here just to differentiate between these guys, like we are doing here. As you can see, this is exactly the same thing, minimum input, but we are putting a prefix here just so we know this one works in a different place and this one works in a different place. So we put that prefix there. But instead, we can create objects and just put minimum inputs in there, and then we can sort them out as an object here. So this is what we're going to do in the coming videos. We're going to convert these guys into objects so that we don't put functions with names that are this long. We should just be doing tab drag stat. That's it. This should be part of the overall object. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video where we do that. We call it factorizing or something like that. So let me remove this. Oops, what have I done? Oh boy, my mouse is fighting with me today. Okay, so I'm removing this just to take things back to normal, like that, and save. So back to page not found. Okay, so things are good now here. Back to normal. Alrighty then, so let's come back in the next video, and refactor our code.